Welcome to our project about Maltese history.
Merħba għal proġett tagħna dwar l-istorja ta' Malta.
The Maltese history spans over 7,000 years. This is evident through the wealth of historical sites and monuments spread throughout the island. Malta's strategic position in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea has been and still is a jewel in the eyes of other countries.
Men arrived in Malta around 5200 BC. These Neolithic people most likely came from Sicily. These dwellers lived mainly on agriculture. They lived in caves like Ardalam, which dates back to 5000 BC, and the temples. The Chikantia temples are the earliest of a series of megalithic temples in Malta. They are 1000 years older than the pyramids in Giza. The temples were connected with fertility cults, where the individuals prayed in order to bring healthy infants. Other temples include Hajar Im and the Mnaira temples. These date back to 2600 BC. The temples were probably used for astronomical observations.
In 800 BC, the Phoenicians used the island as a shipping base, since the natural harbors made Malta ideal for trade and for defensive purposes. They worshipped a number of gods and were very superstitious. The Phoenicians were famous for their trade, for dyeing clothes, especially in violet color, and for the manufacture of glass. They also invented the alphabet. It was the Phoenicians who gave Malta its first name, Malet, which meant safe haven.
In 480 BC, the Phoenicians were followed by the Carthaginians. After the destruction of Carthage, Malta became one of the chief centers of Carthaginian industry, especially the manufacture of textile fabrics. Malta furnished them with cotton.
Malta was under the Romans in 216 BC, and it continued to prosper in the commerce industries. This was the time when the Romans became the masters of the Mediterranean Sea. The Romans taught the Maltese various trades, gave them rights and benefits, and embellished the island.
In the year 60 AD, Saint Paul the Apostle was shipwrecked on the island and converted the island from paganism to Christianity. The Maltese ever since have remained faithful to this new religion in spite of the many changes that took place in the government of the island. They bravely fought any intruders who tried to rob them from their faith.
The Arab expansion reached Malta in the year 870 AD. It seems that these were hard days over Malta. The new masters treated the Maltese with little respect. The Maltese people had problems as they could not show their true devotion towards praying. For defense purposes, the Arabs began to fortify the island and surrounded the capital city Mdina with walls, dug a deep moat around it, and at the end its entrance erected a strong fortress. Fort St. Angelo was also built in Birgu to defend the harbor. The Arabs influenced our language, which is Semitic in origin. The Arabs also introduced citrus fruits and new food, such as spices, in our islands. The Maltese balcony is a remnant of the Arabic architecture.
The country remained under Arab domination until 1090 AD, when Count Roger of Normandy added Malta to his conquest of Sicily.
Another important year in our history is 1530. On the 26th October 1530, the Maltese Islands were passed on to the Sovereign Military Hospitalier Order of St. John, known as the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem. Once in Malta, the order strengthened Malta's defenses and prepared the Knights and Maltese for a big Turkish attack. Although no Maltese noble person could have joined the order, the Knights and the Maltese worked together. When the Great Siege of 1565 arose, every able person on these islands helped to crush the opponents, even though there were 5 Turks to each Maltese. After 4 months of fierce fighting, the Ottoman army had to withdraw from the Maltese islands.
After the Great Siege, Grand Master Gian Parisio della Vallette started building a new capital city which was surrounded by fortifications. The place chosen was a peninsula overlooking the Grand Harbour, so Malta got a new capital city, Valletta, a city built by gentlemen for gentlemen.
The 3 most important buildings in Valletta, built by the Knights of St. John, are the Co-Cathedral of St. John, the Grand Master's Palace, and the hospital, called the Sacra Infermeria. Various expensive works were undertaken, such as bastions and watchtowers, and water was brought to Valletta along Wynyacourt Aqueduct. Malta became richer under the Knights. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the Maltese took active part in chasing pirates. Malta became an important trading centre. Docks and stores were built. But the Maltese were always afraid of some other attack by the Turks. However, when money became scarce and the Turks had been defeated, the order began to lose its power and importance.
The famous artist who worked in Malta during the times of the Knights was Michelangelo Merisi, known as Caravaggio. His monumental work, Beheading of St. John the Baptist, is on display in the Co-Cathedral of St. John in Valletta.
In the end of the 18th century, Napoleon wanted to take Malta from the Knights to have a base in the Mediterranean Sea. He brought an enormous fleet and army to Malta. The French, during the 2-year occupation, humiliated the Knights and the Maltese, stole church property, desecrated the churches. The Maltese were very angry with the French and stood against them. The French garrison retreated into Valletta. The Maltese asked the British for assistance, and in 1800 the French garrison surrendered. This meant the beginning of the British era in Malta.
Initially, the island was not given much importance, but after the opening of the Suez Canal, the Maltese excellent harbours became a prized asset for the British. The island became a military and naval fortress, the headquarters of the British Mediterranean Fleet.
During the Second World War, Malta was used by the British as a submarine base, and from here attacks were launched on the Italian Navy. Being a British colony and situated close to Sicily, Malta was bombarded heavily by the Italian and German air forces. Malta once again became the nurse of the Mediterranean, with over 25,000 beds available for the sick and injured.
On the 15th of April 1942, King George VI awarded the George Cross, the highest civilian award for gallantry, to the island fortress of Malta, to its people and the defenders.
Soon after the war, a great number of young people from Malta and Gozo had to leave the islands in search of employment in faraway countries. During the 50s and 60s, thousands of Maltese migrated to countries such as America, Canada, and Australia.
Malta became an independent nation within the Commonwealth on the 21st of September 1964, never to be invaded again. On the request of the Maltese, Queen Elizabeth II of Britain also becomes Queen of Malta.
In 1974, Malta became a republic, while keeping its status as a member of Commonwealth. Maltese were finally free to run their own country and their own lives.
On the 1st of April 1979, the last British troops and Royal Navy left the island after the end of the Economic Pact to stabilize the Maltese economy.
On the 1st of May 2004, Malta joined the European Union and 4 years later adopted the euro as its currency.